and now we're going to talk about pitching.
The goal of a pitching as a founder is to have your audience know what you do, how you do it, why, like what's the purpose of this, and then what do you want them to do.
When you find out who's your competition, if they have a great market share, then it's not going to be very smart to go against them.
Go find a corner over there that you can actually operate in, take ownership of that corner of the market in that specific niche versus trying to do the exact same thing as these larger companies that are heavily funded and what most better known. Start by creating intrigue, which basically means your goal is to literally accomplish one thing. The person wants to learn a lot more about what you're doing.
Nick, hey, welcome to our podcast.
It's a pleasure to be here. I'm excited to be in Croatia.
And here in person, not over Zoom or and something
I know.
else.
It works a lot better when we're here.
Yeah. Today, doing my prep, I went through our emails, and we had a meet in February, and now this is being filmed on 16th of May, so it's already been 3 months.
Yeah.
Time flies. All right, so today we're going to talk about Founders Live and idea pitching. But before we start, can you just explain what is Founders Live?
Yeah. Well, in short, Founders Live is a global ecosystem for early stage startups and founders. And, the quick story is, I started Founders Live 10 years ago in Seattle, Washington. So I'm American from the United States. And I put on a pitch. I basically just put on an event in Seattle, had this idea, just tested out like, hey, could we create just a pitch competition? Let's have fun. The whole point was just to have fun and celebrate the founders, and selected 5 founders, had each one in the very first event. And there's some themes here that we'll talk about, but I created this. I said 99 seconds only to pitch, and that was kind of the big thing. I would say one of the biggest things I've ever done was to commit to that, and so then we had 5 founders that each had 99-second pitches, and then 4 minutes of questions from the audience. And we cycled through the 5, and at the end, the crowd voted on a winner. And so that fun event, which was in March 28th of 2014, it turned out really well. And so I kept doing that every month going forward. Every single month going forward, new event, new founders pitching, more people were showing up. And after 2+ years, all of a sudden, we had this thing that was growing, and then people in the other parts of the United States, other cities, wanted to do this as well. They saw that we were doing this through social media, and basically just put together the process to have this happen in other cities, and created what's our city leader role. And what's crazy is, I'll fast forward through all the gory details, but we've expanded now to 120, maybe 125 cities across 47, almost 50 countries. So Founders Live now has spread all around the world, and the key thing is, entrepreneurship is a human desire, and I think it proves that, we've had people reach out from, lesser known cities in Africa, lesser known cities in Southeast Asia. We're obviously across Europe, and we'll talk about some of this tour, but in the end, we realize that people all around the world want to create, they want to build, they want to be successful, but most of the people are not being served correctly. They're not getting the opportunities for success. And so now we've built this ecosystem around 4 things. Number 1 is continually growing the community in the ecosystem, bringing more people in. That's why our events are so important. Number 2 is access to knowledge and information, helping people discover how to become a better professional, a better entrepreneur, and actually operate a business. Thirdly is resources and capital. So resources being the software, the tools, the cloud services, the AI stuff, tools that are coming out now, advisors, other things of that nature. And then, capital. So we don't invest in the startups directly, but right now we partner with other organizations to bring investment and funding closer to the startups. And really the last one is exposure and discoverability. And again, the events, having people get on stage, there might be 100 or 200 people in the room, having them, get that pitch into the market, become more discovered, and learn about what's going on, and then connect with investors or customers or whatever. So in general, that's what Founders Live is. Like, we came from this one city, this thing has grown now to something that's spreading all over the world, and we continue to grow, and our vision is to be the world's largest ecosystem that really drives economic activity and early stage growth for entrepreneurs around the world.
Yeah, did you expect that it was going to get so big? Because from what you said, it seems like it was a startup idea. You started in one city and then, expanded to almost, you said, what, 50 countries?
50 countries, yeah. And, I think that that's going to continue to grow. The answer is initially no. As I travel through Europe now, which we'll talk about, it does fascinate me. It's like, wow, I created this thing in my home city, and now it's all around the world, and so I didn't. But then when you do something like what Founders Live is, and it works in one city, the logic has to be it can work in another city, or 5 cities, or 100. That's the logic, right? You just have to find the bridge from 1 to 5 to 100. And so pretty quickly I started to build out a vision of what I think the world needed and is really desiring. So initially no, but now for sure yes.
So basically Founders Live is a community that helps entrepreneurs start their companies, if they have a good idea, that is.
Yeah.
All right, so now you're here in Europe.
Yeah.
You have a European tour. A couple days ago you were in Athens. Next you're going to Austria. So what's the tour about?
Yeah, so as Founders Live started to really grow around the world, I'm a adventure seeker in some ways, and as a CEO, I think it's important to not just run a business from your corner office or whatever. And it just made a lot of sense for me to start to travel. And my goal is the travel is really 3 or 4 kind of things. Number one is, first of all, it's awesome to go and, travel to different cities and countries and see the world. I just want to see the world. Number 2 is to meet our leaders. We have city leaders in all of these cities. So the way that Founders Live operates is we have teams that run our events and really lead. So, I know them on Zoom, and of course I want to meet them in person if I can. So, so then thirdly is to meet the founders and really our community, and, entrepreneur to entrepreneur. Like, I want to know what entrepreneurship is like in Croatia or in Austria or in, you name the country. And so, so this is my opportunity to do that. And so basically every year I pick a part of the world to tour. And I started doing this like 5 years ago. Actually, the year before the pandemic, I went all around the world, just kind of picked parts of the world. I went to London. I didn't go anywhere else in Europe actually, but I went through the US and then, kind of went through Africa a little bit. And I fell in love with the travel. I fell in love with, there's a combination of, touring and travel, but also, business. These are Founders Live cities that I'm visiting. And so so this year's Europe, and it's a 4.5-month tour. It'll end up being about 25 cities, and I'm spending about 6 to 7 days in each city. So I'm about 7 weeks in, so this is city 7 in Zagreb, and it's absolutely incredible. And if the only way I can describe it is, like, literally every single week your mind is blown. Like, you're just like, oh my God, like, this is amazing. I was in Lisbon, and then I went through Spain, and then I went through Italy, and then I was in Athens, and now I'm here in Croatia. It's just like, so it's really been amazing. And I'm like a third, like 30% into it, and it's I'm just energized now. I'm like, your body, it's a weird thing. I could sit here and talk for an hour on it, but you kind of go through this process of, you're literally traveling for 4.5 months, so you have to learn how to and get used to switching cities every week, and now I'm pretty much used to it. Yeah.
Yeah, and that could be tiring.
It's incredibly tiring, And honestly, like, you're also like, oh, okay, I'm in Zagreb. Like, this is my first time here. Well, shoot, I need to go out and go crazy and have fun. But then you realize, like, wait, tomorrow. So like last night, I was like, nah, I'm just gonna go to bed because we have an event tonight. It's gonna be fun. We're gonna go have our, we're gonna do our thing. And so you have to conserve energy, and you can't go out all the time. So it does get tiring, and you actually have to get your sleep and your rest and your exercise and quality nutrition. You have to stay healthy. Like, that's the number one thing, or your whole it just
Same goes for entrepreneurs,
Yes, I talk about it all the time.
Yeah.
I think just staying healthy, being fit, just having just doing the things that keeping your body at optimal position. Not going crazy, and you don't need to hit the gym all the time, but you need to make sure that you stay healthy so that you can do the things you need to do for your business.
Right. All right. So you mentioned there's an event today.
Yeah.
At that event, what's going to happen?
Yeah. So we got pretty big group. Looks like there's probably going to be 150 people, 125, 150 people there. It looks like it's going to be great. And it's networking, music, food, drinks, whatever. And so, it's not only like meeting a lot of people, and it's really fun, but then we have pre-selected 5 founders that will pitch. And again, it's a 99-second pitch. This is a competition, and each one will have that opportunity, and then 4 minutes of questions from the audience. So each one is on stage for about 5.5 minutes, and they're flipping through slides. They're talking about what they're building, why is it important, and then we cycle through the 5 in that way, and at the end the crowd will vote, and so there will be a winner that comes out of it and all that, and I'll speak a little bit before the pitch competition happens, and it's just going to be really exciting.
All right, and now we're going to talk about pitching.
Yeah.
Now that you mentioned it, so pitching is something that entrepreneurs do in front of investors or a crowd to present their idea. There are many ways, that you can pitch to an investor, methodologies, whatever, How should one start a pitch? What's your opinion about that? How should you deliver? How can you deliver an impactful pitch?
Yeah. Well, first and most important is to understand, what type of pitch is this, right? And there's like customer or half an hour long meetings. Typically they're in boardrooms, like this, and that's different in some ways. There's investor pitches that are obviously a little longer. But when you think about the Founders Live pitch, which we can talk, like that's directly what we'll talk about here. Again, it's short, brief, and to the point. The reason why I created the 99-second pitch is like, look, no one has time now for 5-10 minutes. Like, there's just, whether it's an event or even if you're talking with a prospective, like either investor or maybe big customer, you need to get to the point. Like, so to, answer your initial question, to approach a pitch, you need to start by creating intrigue, which basically means your goal with that, let's call it minute 39, is to literally accomplish one thing. The person wants to learn a lot more about what you're doing, okay? So the process, and we have a bunch of this, we have a lot of prep materials, and we actually kind of, help founders really understand how to formulate this pitch. And the key is building a story through it. Okay, 99 seconds is enough time to actually create an intriguing story that wraps in, essentially you want to hit in some sort of emotional aspect. And you can still do this if you're like B2B software. There is problems in the world. So you want to introduce, like, out of the gate, you need to have a catchy opening that, again, if you're in an event that there's 200 people in the room and everyone's sitting there, this is their distraction, right? So your goal is, out of the gate, catch their attention.
Short and concise sentence, probably.
Like literally that first opening is something shocking or something like, whether it's emotional or shocking or just like, whoa. And then the first, 1/3 of your pitch really needs to set the tone of the problem that you're attacking. And that can be, from a well-designed slide to like, hey, here's, there might be some data and numbers or whatever. But basically, your goal with this pitch is to get people to nod their head saying, absolutely right, I'm interested. What do you do? How do you solve it, right?
Yes, you need to start with a problem.
Start with the problem, and then you slide into your solution. Like, here's what we do. Here's how we solve it. Ideally, you then start putting in, here's where a graph helps with like traction. Like, okay, we've launched, here's what we're doing, and here's why people are adopting it. Maybe you have some quick revenue numbers or whatnot, like basically the metrics, and you're proving that you've gone to market and something good is happening. And then you're closing out by, if it's the right environment, you actually have an ask where you say, hey, and we have a round open of funding for X, and come talk to me. You do want to end the pitch, and again, this is the Founders Live pitch. You want to end with what you're asking for, not just like, well, thanks everyone. Like, and so now we can go into the goal of a pitching as a founder is to have your audience know what you do, how you do it, why, like what's the purpose of this, and then what do you want them to do? Like, you're sitting in the audience and you're like, okay, they want me to download the app. Oh, okay. Oh, they're interested in maybe me investing. That's a great pitch, is when you're able to convey that, or at least have people understand, oh, I get it. I like it, and I want to talk further with this founder, right? So we can go into the no-nos later and like the things that not to do, but that's the way to think about a pitch. You're educating people, and you're doing it literally within a minute 39.
Yeah, and you should try and explaining everything as concise and simple as you can. Because let's say, all right, I'm a videographer and I'm looking for let's take this podcast for an example. There's quite some editing to do here, but it's just time consuming. You have to cut frames and that's it. And what I was thinking, it would be cool, to develop a software, let's say that's, that has AI, that can automatically, just cut everything for you and just, save you the time. And that's what I wanted to say. You actually have to start when explaining the problem. In this case, I'm a video editor, and this takes too much time. And let's say we're gonna make an app or a tool that's gonna help video editors, to save their time. So that's explaining the problem. Actually,
Yep.
Maybe saying, all right, so an average video editor loses 2 hours just cutting the podcast. And with our tool, that's the solution already. He or she can save an hour, 2 hours, whatever, and do this in 5 minutes.
Exactly. Yeah. And then with this is where visually the slides come in, and a well-designed slide achieves that literally with an image, or maybe it's a quick graph, or it's showing that here's all this time, and you can like add it up each week times 52. In a year, literally videographers are doing 200 hours.
Yeah.
And you times that by $50 or $100, I don't know, $200 an hour, they're losing $100,000 a year. I mean, you can start to map that out and say, and we solve that by it takes 5 minutes and costs $50 a month.
Yeah. So,
whatever, right? So that's part of it. And but I think the beauty is, look, people ask me a lot about great pitches and whatnot, and I've seen thousands. I mean, literally, like I've been around, I've been doing this 10 years, and whether it's virtual or physical events, it's got to be thousands now. And great pitches just not only grip you like emotionally, or you're like, okay, I got you, you got me. And secondly, you're like, dang right, that is a problem. That is a unique idea and solution, and the world needs it.
All right. So what about, let's say, we talked about 99-second pitches, but when you have, more minutes, 5 to 7 minutes, one of the things that, you can do is you can check out the competition and see what's going out in the markets. And that makes things easier, because we had an episode with an angel investor who said, a lot of them don't, check out the market size or what's happening out there, and they think their idea is going to be successful, but what happens is it's something completely something else.
Yeah. So when you think about, you take from a 99-second pitch, extend it to 5, 10, 20 minutes, and if that's like an investor, or typically you're having a conversation with investors that, you might have slides supporting, but yes, you want to really expand into, really know your market. That means, what is the market potential, and you think about like the TAM, total addressable market, serviceable aspect of the market. Start to know those numbers, because investors are going to really, they're going to ask you, and whether they know the answer or not, they're testing to see if you've done your research. Okay, so involving the market, then looking at probably another one of competition as well. Who else is in that space that you need to be aware of, and how are you different? It's not that it's like, in some ways, most investors don't necessarily care like if XYZ companies are in the market. You need to identify those so that you know how you differentiate, because that's the key, is you need to create differentiation so you can be separated from those people in the market. Another one is really, revenue model, business model, how are you making money? Okay, how does that scale out? What is the potentials here? So you start looking at the 3 to 5 year projections, and we all know that those are guesses, but what's the potential here, and how do you see yourself getting there? And another one might be, you've heard kind of the term like use of funds, or basically like, great, if you're raising 2 million USD, where is that going? What are you going to use it for, and how does it get your company to the next level? So those are some of the aspects, I think, of an extended pitch that you don't have time for in a night. Mm-hmm. I will say a mistake is you don't have time in a 99-second pitch to involve all these aspects of the like 10 or 15 minute pitch into the 99 seconds. You paint a story. You want to get people saying, that's interesting. You got me. I get it. You don't want to mix up all this and try to smash it all into 99 seconds. I think that's a big mistake.
You mentioned research, and one of the things that happens is, you have to do thorough research, because, when you find out who's your competition, if they have a great market, share, then, it's not going to be very smart to go against them. And what you can do, you can actually maybe switch your niche a little bit, and find something else.
Yeah. In some ways we might call that pivot, or maybe just, as you say, just like look at the market, see where the major players are. It might be relevant today to talk about when you think about like AI. And I was just reading this morning as, Google just made a lot of new announcements on the things that they're doing in AI. Well, all of these smaller generative AI startups, they got to look around and say like, okay, what we're doing, are we able to compete with, Google or OpenAI or whatever? And, so it's important for those early stage companies, go find a corner over there that you can actually operate in, and really, take ownership of that corner of the market in that specific niche. That's a very good strategy versus trying to do the exact same thing as these larger companies that are heavily funded and most better known.
Yeah, and try to identify if it's only a trend. And by that I mean, now it's AI. A couple of years ago it was blockchain and crypto.
Yeah.
Everybody was talking about that. And now, it's AI. So, you might have a product, let's say a software product that has AI in it, but is it really useful? Who knows? All right. What are the big no's when pitching? What are the don't do that? What are those? What are those?
Yeah, there's a lot. The first one is, if you go back to what I was saying earlier, it's like, okay, when you get chosen to pitch at Founders Live, great. And you start with your pitch deck and you just start writing bullet points, like with no visual aspect to your slide deck. If you just start writing stuff and having bullet points, and then you get up in front of all the people and you're just reading your slides, This is first, that is not a good thing to do. Okay,
so it looks like somebody doesn't have confidence in their product.
Exactly.
Idea.
Like they just literally okay, you need to put thought into it. So going back to, we have a ton of materials through Founders Live that can help founders do this. But what is the storyline? What are you trying to convey? You got to take some time to go through that. The second one is, in some way associated with that, is just trying to, like I said before, is like, I've got 99 seconds. I'm going to try to smash as much as possible and talk as fast as possible, and then use all these acronyms and other, industry terms that no one else knows. And you just try to smash it all in and rush through it and try to be done. Again, people sit there and they're like, I don't really understand what you really do.
Quality, not quantity.
Exactly. It's quality over quantity. Another one is, I think just from a standpoint of with Founders Live, like you got to know that you are being timed. Like this is a 99-second pitch. We stop people. Okay. So, typically we just use the timer on the phone. It'll beep and we just, start clapping and having, you're done. And so I think this really falls into preparation and actually practice. And, some people really are good on, they can public speak, they're comfortable and they're confident. Some people really need to practice on this. But it is important if you're going through a Founders Live event and an experience like that, prepare, practice, and coming from the CEO, don't go over your time limit, right? It just doesn't come across well when you have to be stopped and you haven't.
And you covered what, 2/3 maybe.
Exactly. So that's, I would say, another thing. So now let's talk about being on stage, right? So typically Founders Live events are in person. These happen all over the world. Some things we do virtually online, and that's fun. We have a kind of a global competition as well. That those are actually like you're on screen. But when you are standing on the stage, you think about like just being comfortable and confident, and you're holding the mic. You need to have stage presence, and a lot of people that aren't experienced, they're kind of dropping the mic down, and they're not realizing, and they're doing this with their hands. You need to like keep the mic up here because then people in the back of the room, so they can hear you and they're not distracted. They're basically like, I can't hear him. I can't hear the person now talk. So they just blank out. And so I would say a no-no is just, don't be, don't be too nervous. Don't be walking around. Like, be aware of your body presence and your confidence on stage, and especially with the microphone. Make sure you're holding it in the right place so that people in the room can hear you, they can understand you, and you want to remove all these little things so people hear your message, not think about, wow, like this person seems to be very nervous, So those are some. There's obviously a lot of others. Another one is like, I'm so nervous right now. Like, why would you say that right before you're about to pitch in front of 150 people? Yeah. So it's just in some ways just being prepared and confident, and in the end, this is your time to present and tell your vision of the world. Because like, I can tell you right now, any founder that gets on stage for Founders Live, I know this for certain, you think about your stuff, you think about your thing all the time. The moment you wake up, throughout the day, when you go to bed, when you sleep, you are dreaming, envisioning this. I know this because this is what we all do. So do yourself an important service and help yourself by being prepared and being calm and confident. It comes across great.
What are some of the pitches that have stuck to your mind, as being the one of the best that you've heard?
Yeah, it's so hard.
I know we're jumping, from big no-nos, but I think that we're gonna jump to a more positive note, so that's why I asked that.
I think what I'll do is I'll sum it up by like kind of hitting those points. I've heard a number of them that have been great. I've heard a lot of them that haven't. And I think the ones that, when I think about, one of them was like, I always remember this one. I was in Dallas, in Texas, the United States, and this team they actually built a robot quarterback that throws footballs.
All right.
Essentially, this automated robot that then, throws footballs, and so receivers, people, they can practice catching without having someone throw the football to them. And they just did a really good job of describing, the problem. Actually having they had the thing right there, and then they walk through the problem, the solution, why it's unique and different, the market size, and in the end, it was just like, wow. You want your audience to like say wow at the end, okay? So that's just an example of like visually, it was really great. They came in perfect timing. They had a cadence of going through, here's what we saw in the world. This is a major problem. This is, time and energy and wasted, Here's our solution. Here's what we do. Here's the price. Here's who it's for. Here's our traction thus far. They've got it into NFL teams.
Now that you've mentioned, I was thinking college football. There are hundreds of colleges, universities in the U.S.
And this in some ways is a niche product, right? But there's also a really great market, and quarterbacks are not worried about it taking its job because they're like, look, I don't want to sit here and throw practice throws.
Yeah, just tearing my shoulder.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, but the receivers want to practice catching, and it can also throw very accurate, and it can also throw off. So like making the receiver actually go down here to get it. So, that's just one. I mean, there's been so many. There was another one where the pitches that really do well with Founders Live is like a lot of like medical or climate or things that are bringing up issues that we see, right? So like aging, health. There was a pitch recently that I was in an event at that really talked about seniors and aging and kind of the health issues as well as social, like they're lonely, and there's they literally they struggle. And the startup, the solution was really how they solve these issues for families. And it's not the 80 or 90-year-old person. It's actually, the message was for the family, whether it was the grandkids or the children of the 90-year-old that is most emotionally affected. And so the pitch was really great because they brought in the emotional aspect. And it's like, you see that your grandparents or your parents are struggling in these areas, and here's our solution. Here's how we solve it. Here's how you get into our community. Here's how you use our product. And then they showed market traction and the revenue model, and like, here's where we're going, and join us and be a part of it. So I think those are two examples that are a bit different that still
and they both had, sorry for interrupting, they both had a solution to an existing problem.
Yeah.
Because sometimes what happens, company founders think of a problem that doesn't really exist, and find a solution.
And that's a really great point, that within the pitch, it is important that you need to prove that there is a market that has this problem. And you do that through your market research. You do that through illustrating certain data. And I think it's a very rare startup that can essentially create something and invent something that there is no real problem for right now, and then try to take it to market and be successful.
Right. What about, since Decode is a software agency, do you have any examples of people having ideas, for great apps or something that you can think of?
Well, in this direction for, Decode, I think, in general, I would just say it's like globally, there is a major, huge problem of people and teams around the world that have concepts, ideas, and directions with business, and don't have necessarily the exact skills, talents, and expertise to make those happen, right? So if you think about that, is like the market is all of these people that want to do X, but they can't either code it, build it, create it for the product, the software, to actually do X. And so, I think that's where, that in terms of that pitch, or you look at the opportunity of, there's, the whole world is full of, opportunities, deals, people that are looking for software to be built, or, apps to be created. And, that's where the need is. And so I think from a Decode standpoint, this is a rhetorical question in some ways, but I'd be curious to see what that full pitch would be, how that can kind of come together, and who you exactly serve and all that. But I think it's really interesting.
Yeah, part of it, why we started this podcast is because a lot of our inquiries that we get are, from people that have an idea for an app, but don't know how to just develop it further. And what happens is sometimes they, don't even do proper market research, or what, as we call it here, product discovery, and are completely clueless, to what to do. So, all right. What are the questions that are frequently asked after pitching? And there are probably, if you're talking about specific product, that's fine. But what are let's say we can, maybe take it from the big nose. What are the people that often forget to mention, in their pitches, and that they get asked a lot after they finish their pitch?
Yeah. Well, a question that gets asked, I wouldn't say so every time, but it happens, where someone will literally, after the pitch, and it's kind of like, it's like dead silent, it's like, or it's time for questions, and someone raised their hand and they're like, but what did you exactly do? And that's, then it's like, so that clearly means that they were a little off on their message or whatever. But, a lot of questions are around, can you describe a little more about the business model, right? And so, with a proper pitch, you've illustrated, here is our pricing, or we make money by our revenue model is XYZ. We're, B2C subscription model. Great. And so the questions around like, can you describe a little more of that revenue model? Like, who exactly is your target customer? Some of their questions are around, you're starting to get now more like privacy and, okay, what sort of AI is involved in this, and or like what's going on in the background, or hey, tell us a little bit more about the team and who's involved here. Those are certain questions.
To see if you have people who know what they're doing,
And sometimes and I think this is a fine thing to do. Sometimes the founder that's pitching on stage, they're like, oh, and they have slides after, so they kind of have an index of slides, and they'll go to the actual team slide. And they're like, this is our team. That's Joe, there's Jane there, and so they have a slide prepared for those questions. And so that's another thing with pitch. I think for a 99-second pitch, you should probably have about 8 slides, maybe 7. And it's okay to then have, 5 or 6 afterwards that you might know those questions you get asked. Go to market strategy. So, great. Like the idea. This is really interesting. How are you going to get this to the next stage? What's your go-to-market strategy? And they're like, tick, tick. And then they talk about, here's how we are. Here's our stage right now. Here's the next stage that we go to. We're going to go through these channels and distribution and whatnot. So, those are questions. It's pretty unique depending on the pitch, but, a lot of the questions are kind of around that, like, you have a 99-second pitch, and then you're going to have a 4 or 5 minute discussion on a little more details of what was just said.
Should you be asking for money in a pitch, or saying, let's say, I need $200K to start this, $300K, whatever?
Yeah.
Is that a yes or a no? Or depends?
I think it depends. If you would have asked me, 8 years ago, 6 years ago, I would have said do not.
Why?
It create so that back then.
Does it sound cheap?
It makes it a little awkward. Like,
Okay.
look, Founders Live, and again, that was.
No, I'm actually asking in general, maybe.
Okay.
We can both, see about Founders Live.
So
and
the short answer for Founders Live is it depends on the event, and if it's a room of like 20 people and you know that there's no investors there, it probably doesn't fit well, and it's like, it's okay to say. And by the way, we're opening a round of funding, and if we're raising at $500,000. If anyone is interested, come talk to me. Like, that's okay to say. But in today's world, I feel that things have moved a little forward, and with like crowdfunding and other things of that nature, all the things that are happening, I think it's okay to end with some sort of message that you're raising money. Like I said before.
So not saying explicitly,
Yeah, explicitly not, and there's actually rules against that in the U.S. especially.
Is there? I didn't know that.
There is rules, but it's like weird. Like, it's called the general solicitation. You're actually not supposed to directly tell or ask people that you're about investing. You need to do that in an environment that that these are accredited investors and all this stuff. Like, we don't need to go down that road. But I think in today's world, you want to end with something of an ask. So it's like, hey, there's a QR code there. Would love for you to download our app and give us some feedback. Or, hey, by the way, we're excited to enter now this new phase. We're opening a round of funding. We're raising, $750K. Come talk to us if you're interested. That's fine. So I think it's okay.
All right. I think I don't have any more questions. Do you have anything that you like to, that we didn't go through or would like to mention?
Yeah, I would just say that it's been, maybe a thought around, because if people are watching this and you're a bit earlier, or you're sitting here like, look, we've built our first version of the product. We're a couple years in, maybe 1 or 2 years in, and you're looking to grow. And look, Founders Live is big enough. We reach a couple 100,000 people around the world, and I'm here touring Europe. Like, I started something in Seattle, and it kind of baffles me that I'm on a 4.5-month tour through more than 20 cities, around Europe. That's pretty amazing. And so my suggestion, my maybe advice would be, do not, well, first of all, you do need to be seeing indications of success and market adoption, and whoever you're building for, you need to look for just that, like, okay, we might have 100 data points, but these 20 are like, they're using the product, they're in, you need to follow that, right? You need to see the indications of success. But don't doubt, like, when I think about, like, so year 1, year 2, we were only in Seattle. Year 3, we were only in Seattle. We started our second city in kind of year 3, year 4, and that was Portland, Oregon, in the United States. And then Chicago.
A couple hours away from Seattle.
Yeah. And then like Chicago, and then, Dallas, and we went from like 1 city to like 5, and then 5 to 10. And, it's taken 10 years to now have something that's global and is really achieving things. And we are nowhere where I know we can be. So that, like, I know we're large, and that's great, but we're nowhere in, revenue. We got a lot of place to go. With new experiences and products, we have a lot of ways to go. And so I would just say that, really, really understand where you're at today is where you're at, and look for indications that things are working, and then know that 5-10 years is what is required. Like 5 to 10 years at least, and be ready to be on that journey. And the journey is amazing. Like, it's awesome. And, be in love with that process, don't be in a hurry to like build so much or try to sell or like, oh, we're going to IPO or do whatever. Just fall in love with your market and like fall in love with the problem you're trying to solve. And there's going to be many different solutions to what you're doing. Like you're going to try all these things. But you know, for me, as I have found a life that I really want to, I love pursuing. And like the problem is literally like there's billion people on this earth that can and should be more successful and create things around the world. We're here to make that happen. Like that's the vision. That's a lifelong, if not, it's going to take, you know, hundreds of years to achieve. So I like that. And I think for me, like that makes it so that I'm not in a hurry to sell or, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's not success overnight.
No, it's success over the literally, we've got another 30 years, 40 years, I don't know, right? So I would just suggest to think about in that way and you're going to be good.
What I wanted to ask you actually, I'm going to jump to something else a bit. What's the biggest difference between American entrepreneurs and European, if you have noticed any?
Yeah.
Mindsets, what's the difference between the mindsets?
You know, I think American entrepreneurs, I think this is a negative that they just think that you know, going and raising money will solve all the problems. And so everyone's so set on literally like, and I talk about this a lot, even in the United States. Do not think that you just need to go pitch investors to go get investment and go get money so then you can build the product. And like, that's not the solution. So when you think about American, US entrepreneurs, a lot of them are just so focused on pitching to investors to raise money. What I've noticed with Europe thus far, I'm still only 6, 7 cities in. I can see that you all are just getting at it and building. And of course, like talking with investors is important. But because there is less investment activity happening, you're more focused on getting stuff done. Now, at some point, what I've read and noticed is there might be a little bit of mindset that is a little smaller versus like thinking very, very large in terms of billions and billions. And look, I encourage thinking. It's okay to think smaller. It's okay to think, I think you should have a vision of what you want to create. And you don't have to create a unicorn, $1 billion company. You don't have to do that. So go build something that's solving a problem and go see how you can make that a great business. And I think
be realistic.
Be realistic, which I think European is. And I've noticed that I think that there's a better balance of, or whatever you want to call it, like life and work and whatever. I try to do that as much as I can. So I think that there's a better balance of that, or combination of having a life, having a family, living in a great place, whether it's Zagreb or whatever city, Florence or whatever, and working on the thing that you want to work on. I think in the U.S. it's a little out of whack.
Right.
All we do is work, and it's crazy.
Yeah, take some time off.
Yeah, but I think all of the founders I've interacted with and met, I'm impressed thus far, and I think you all are doing great. And look, in the end, through travel, like I've been in almost every continent, and look, we're all much more similar than we are different. And so I think entrepreneurs in Croatia are fairly similar to entrepreneurs in the US, I can tell you that.
Yeah, I talked to an angel investor a couple of weeks ago, and he said, I asked him, same question to you, what's the difference? And, he said, well, you are a lot like Americans. And then I said, well, it's probably because we pick a lot, from you, through YouTube, internet, whatever, because United States, what's country for entrepreneurs? One might say ideal country for entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
All right. That's pretty much it from my side. Thank you for being a guest on our show, and I hope the event goes well tonight.
Yeah, thank you. And it's a play. It's so fun to be here in Croatia, and it's my first time. and I'm just taking it in. And I wish I could spend more than just 1 week here, but thank you, and excited for tonight. And thanks for the interview.
Yeah, thanks. See ya.